a dream of Sovngarde. In a few hours I will likely be dead. My men and I, Nords of Skyrim all, will soon join the Emperor's legions to attack the Imperial City. The Aldmeri are entrenched within, and our losses will be severe. It is a desperate gambit, for if we do not reclaim the city, we will lose the war. Last night I prayed to mighty Talos for courage and strength in the battle to come. In these last cold hours before the sun rises, I sit down to write this account of a dream I had not long after. I believe this dream was the answer to my prayers, and I would pass along the wisdom it contained to my kinsmen, for the battles they will fight in the years after my passing. In the dream, I walked through mist toward the sound of laughter, merriment, and the songs of the north. The mist soon cleared, and before me lay a great chasm. Waters thundered over its brim, and so deep it was I could not see the bottom. A great bridge made all of whalebone was the only means to cross, and so I took it. It was only a few steps onto the bridge that I encountered a warrior, grim and strong. "I am Soon, master of trials," he said to me, his voice booming and echoing upon the walls of the high mountains all around us. With a wave, he bade me pass on. I knew in my heart I was granted passage only because I was a visitor. Should the hour come when I return here after my mortal life, the legends say that I must beat this dread warrior in single combat. Beyond the bridge, a great stone longhouse rose up before me, so tall as to nearly touch the clouds. Though it took all my strength, I pushed open the towering oaken door and beheld the torch-lit feast hall. Here were assembled the greatest heroes of the Nords, all drinking mead poured from great kegs and singing battle songs, suckling pigs turned on a long iron spit over a roaring fire. My mouth watered at the smell of roast meat, and my heart was glad to hear the songs of old. "Come forth," cried out a hoary man who sat upon a high wooden chair. This I knew to be Ysgramor, father to Skyrim and the Nords. I approached and knelt before him. "You find yourself in Sovngarde, Hall of the Honored Dead. Now, what would you have of me, son of the North?" he bellowed. "I seek counsel," said I, "for tomorrow we fight a desperate battle, and my heart is full of fear." Ysgramor raised his tankard to his lips and drank until the cup was empty. Then he spoke once more. "Remember this always, son of the North. A Nord is judged not by the manner in which he lived, but the manner in which he died." With that, he cast aside his flagon, raised his fist in the air, and roared a great cheer. The other heroes rose to their feet and cheered in answer. The sound still rang in my ears when I awoke. I gathered my men and told them of my vision. The words seemed to fill their hearts with courage. The horns are blowing, and the banners are raised. The time has come to muster. May Talos grant us victory this day, and if I am found worthy, may I once again look upon the great feast hall. Alduin is real, and he ent Akatosh, by Thromgar Ironhead, proud Nord. As my Da used to say, Imperials are idiots. That is why I am writing this book. I ain't never wrote a book before, and I do not reckon to write one again. But sometimes a man must do what a man must do. And what I must do is set the record straight about the god called Akatosh and the dragon called Alduin. They ain't the same thing, no matter what them Imperials might say, or how they might wish it to be so. My Da was never one for the gods, but my mother was. She worshipped all the divines and taught me lots of things, so I know a thing or two about Akatosh, just as much as any Imperial. I know he was the first of all the gods to take shape in the beginning place, and I know he has the shape of a dragon. My Da even told me the story of Martin Septim and the things what happened when the gates to oblivion opened. Septim turned into the spirit of Akatosh and killed Mehrunes Dagon. Now I don't know about you, but any dragon that fights the Prince of Destruction is okay by me. Now I hope you understand the problem. Akatosh is good. Everyone from Nord to Imperial knows that. But Alduin, he ain't good. He's the opposite of good. That Alduin is evil through and through. So you see, Akatosh and Alduin can't be one and the same. Growing up as a lad in Skyrim, I heard all the stories. Told to me by me Da, who was told by his Da, who was told by his Da, and so on. And one of those stories was about Alduin. But see, he was not Akatosh. He was another dragon, and a real one at that. Akatosh is some kind of spirit dragon, I think, when he bothers to be a dragon at all, and not a god living in some kind of god plaque, like Oblivion. But Alduin is a real dragon with flesh and teeth and a mean streak longer than the White River. And there was a time when Alduin tried to rule over all of Skyrim with his other dragons. In the end, it took some mighty strong heroes to finally kill Alduin and be done with his holy sorry story. So I got to ask, does that sound like Akatosh to you? No, friend. No, it does not. And so I, Thromgar Ironhead, do firmly say, with the utmost conviction, that Alduin is real, and he ain't Akatosh. Biography of Barenzia, Volume 1, by Stern Gamboga, Imperial Scribe. Late in the Second Era, a girl child, Barenzia, was born to the rulers of the Kingdom of Mournhold in what is now the Imperial Province of Morrowind. She was reared in all the luxury and security befitting a royal dark elven child until she reached 5 years of age. At that time, His Excellency Tiber Septim, the first Emperor of Tamriel, demanded that the decadent rulers of Morrowind yield to him and institute imperial reforms. Trusting to their vaunted magic, the Dark Elves impudently refused until Tiber Septim's army was on the borders. An armistice was hastily signed by the now eager Dunmer, but not before there were several battles, one of which laid waste to Mournhold, now called Almalexia. Little Princess Barenzia and her nurse were found among the wreckage. The Imperial General Symmachus, himself a dark elf, suggested to Tiber Septim that the child might someday be valuable, and she was therefore placed with a loyal supporter who had recently retired from the Imperial Army. Sven Adventson had been granted the title of Count upon his retirement. His fiefdom, Darkmoor, was a small town in central Skyrim. Count Sven and his wife reared the princess as their own daughter, seeing to it that she was educated appropriately, and more importantly, that the imperial virtues of obedience, discretion, loyalty, and piety were instilled in the child. In short, she was made fit to take her place as a member of the new ruling class of Morrowind. The girl Barenzia grew in beauty, grace, and intelligence. She was sweet-tempered, a joy to her adoptive parents and their 5 young sons, who loved her as their elder sister. Other than her appearance, she differed from young girls of her class only in that she had a strong empathy for the woods and fields, and was wont to escape her household duties to wander there at times. Barenzia was happy and content until her 16th year, when a wicked orphan stable boy, whom she had befriended out of pity, told her he had overheard a conspiracy between her guardian, Count Sven, and a Redguard visitor to sell her as a concubine in Riyadh, as no Nord or Breton would marry her on account of her black skin, and no dark elf would have her because of her foreign upbringing. "Whatever shall I do?" the poor girl said, weeping and trembling, for she had been brought up in innocence and trust, and it never occurred to her that her friend the stable boy would lie to her. The wicked boy, who was called Straw, said that she must run away if she valued her virtue, but that he would come with her as her protector. Sorrowfully, Barenzia agreed to this plan, and that very night she disguised herself as a boy, and the pair escaped to the nearby city of Whiterun. After a few days there, they managed to get jobs as guards for a disreputable merchant caravan. The caravan was heading east by side roads in a mendacious attempt to elude the lawful tolls charged on the imperial highways. Thus, the pair eluded pursuit until they reached the city of Riften, where they ceased their travels for a time. They felt safe in Riften, close as it was to the Morrowind border, so that dark elves were enough of a common sight. Biography of Baranzaya, Volume 2, by Stern Gambog, Imperial Scribe. The first volume of this series told the story of Baranzaya's origin heiress to the throne of Mournhold until her father rebelled against His Excellency Tiber Septim and brought ruin to the province of Morrowind. Thanks largely to the benevolence of the Emperor, the child Baranzaya was not destroyed with her parents, but reared by Count Sven of Darkmoor, a loyal imperial trustee. She grew up into a beautiful and pious child, trustful of her guardian's care. This trust, however, was exploited by a wicked orphan stable boy at Count Sven's estate, who with lies and fabrications tricked her into fleeing Darkmoor with him when she turned 16. After many adventures on the road, they settled in Riften, a Skyrim city near the Morrowind borders. The stable boy, Straw, was not altogether evil. He loved Baranzaya in his own selfish fashion, and deception was the only way he could think of that would cement possession of her. She, of course, felt only friendship toward him, but he was hopeful that she would gradually change her mind. He wanted to buy a small farm and settle down into a comfortable marriage, but at the time his earnings were barely enough to feed and shelter them. After only a short time in Riften, Straw fell in with a bold, villainous Khajiit thief named Theris, who proposed that they rob the Imperial Commandant's house in the central part of the city. Theris said that he had a client, a traitor to the Empire, who would pay well for any information they could gather there. Baranzaya happened to overhear this plan and was appalled. She stole away from their rooms and walked the streets of Riften in desperation, torn between her loyalty to the Empire and her love for her friends. In the end, loyalty to the Empire prevailed over personal friendship, and she approached the Commandant's house, revealed her true identity, and warned him of her friend's plan. The Commandant listened to her tale, praised her courage, and assured her that no harm would come to her. He was none other than General Simicus, who had been scouring the countryside in search of her since her disappearance, and had just arrived in Riften, hot in pursuit. He took her into his custody and informed her that, far from being sent away to be sold, she was to be reinstated as the Queen of Mournhold as soon as she turned 18. Until that time, she was to live with the Septim family in the newly built Imperial City, where she would learn something of government and be presented at the Imperial Court. At the Imperial City, Baranzaya befriended the Emperor Tiber Septim during the middle years of his reign. Tiber's children, particularly his eldest son and heir Pelagius, came to love her as a sister. The ballads of the day praised her beauty, chastity, wit, and learning. On her 18th birthday, the entire Imperial City turned out to watch her farewell procession preliminary to her return to her native land. Sorrowful as they were at her departure, all knew that she was ready for her glorious destiny as sovereign of the Kingdom of Mournhold. Biography of Baranzaya, Volume 3, by Stern Gambog, Imperial Scribe. In the second volume of this series, it was told how Baranzaya was kindly welcomed to the newly constructed Imperial City by the Emperor Tiber Septim and his family, who treated her like a long-lost daughter during her almost one-year stay. After several happy months there learning her duties as vassal queen under the Empire, the Imperial General Simicus escorted her to Mournhold, where she took up her duties as queen of her people under his wise guidance. Gradually, they came to love one another and were married and crowned in a splendid ceremony at which the Emperor himself officiated. After several hundred years of marriage, a son, Helseth, was born to the royal couple amid celebration and joyous prayer. Although it was not publicly known at the time, it was shortly before this blessed event that the Staff of Chaos had been stolen from its hiding place deep in the Mournhold mines by a clever, enigmatic bard known only as the Nightingale. 8 years after Helseth's birth, Baranzaya bore a daughter, Morgaia of Firsthold, named after General Symmachus's mother, and the royal couple's joy seemed complete. Alas, shortly after that, relations with the Empire mysteriously deteriorated, leading to much civil unrest in Mournhold. After fruitless investigations and attempts at reconciliation, in despair, Baranzaya took her young children and traveled to the imperial city herself to seek the ear of then Emperor Uriel Septim VII. General Symmachus remained in Mournhold to deal with the grumbling peasants and annoyed nobility and do what he could to stave off an impending insurrection. During her audience with the Emperor, Baranzaya, through her magical arts, came to realize to her horror and dismay that the so-called Emperor was an impostor, none other than the bard Nightingale who had stolen the Staff of Chaos. Exercising great self-control, she concealed this realization from him. That evening, news came that General Symmachus had fallen in battle with the revolting peasants of Mournhold, and that the kingdom had been taken over by the rebels. Baranzaya, at this point, did not know where to seek help or from whom. The gods, that fateful night, were evidently looking out for her as if in redress of her loss. King Edwire of High Rock, an old friend of Uriel Septim and Symmachus, came by on a social call. He comforted her, pledged his friendship, and furthermore, confirmed her suspicions that the Emperor was indeed a fraud, and none other than Jagar Thorn, the Imperial Battle Mage, and one of the Nightingale's many alter egos. Thorn had supposedly retired into seclusion from public work and installed his assistant, Rhea Silman, in his stead. The hapless assistant was later put to death under mysterious circumstances. Supposedly, a plot implicating her had been uncovered, and she had been summarily executed. However, her ghost had appeared to Edwire in a dream and revealed to him that the true Emperor had been kidnapped by Thorn and imprisoned in an alternate dimension. Thorn had then used the Staff of Chaos to kill her when she attempted to warn the Elder Council of his nefarious plot. Together, Edwire and Baranzaya plotted to gain the false Emperor's confidence. Meanwhile, another friend of Rhea's, known only as the Champion, who apparently possessed great, albeit then untapped potential, was incarcerated at the Imperial dungeons. However, she had access to his dreams, and she told him to bide his time until she could devise a plan that would effect his escape. Then he could begin on his mission to unmask the impostor. Baranzaya continued to charm and eventually befriended the Ersatz Emperor. By contriving to read his secret diary, she learned that he had broken the Staff of Chaos into 8 pieces and hidden them in far-flung locations scattered across Tamriel. She managed to obtain a copy of the key to Rhea's friend's cell and bribed a guard to leave it there as if by accident. Their champion, whose name was unknown even to Baranzaya and Edwire, made his escape through a shift gate Rhea had opened in an obscure corner of the Imperial dungeons using her already failing powers. The champion was free at last and almost immediately went to work. It took Baranzaya several more months to learn the hiding places of all 8 staff pieces through snatches of overheard conversation and rare glances at Thorn's diary. Once she had the vital information, however, which she communicated to Rhea forthwith, who in turn passed it on to the champion. She and Edwire lost no time. They fled to Wayrest, his ancestral kingdom in the province of High Rock, where they managed to fend off the sporadic efforts of Thorn's henchmen to haul them back to the Imperial City, or at the very least obtain revenge. Thorn, whatever else might be said of him, was no one's fool save perhaps Baranzaya's, and he concentrated most of his efforts toward tracking down and destroying the champion. As all now know, the courageous, indefatigable, and forever nameless champion was successful in reuniting the 8 sundered pieces of the Staff of Chaos. With it, he destroyed Thawne and rescued the true Emperor, Uriel Septim VII. Following what has come to be known as the Restoration, a grand state memorial service was held for Symmachus at the imperial city, befitting the man who had served the Septim dynasty for so long and so well. Baron Zaya and good King Edwire had come to care deeply for one another during their trials and adventures, and were married in the same year shortly after their flight from the imperial city. Her 2 children from her previous marriage with Symmachus remained with her, and a regent was appointed to rule Mournhold in her absence. Up to the present time, Queen Berenzia has been in Wayrest with Prince Helseth and Princess Morgia. She plans to return to Mournhold after Edwire's death. Since he was already elderly when they wed, she knows that that event, alas, could not be far off as the elves reckon time. Until then, she shares in the government of the Kingdom of Wayrest with her husband, and seems glad and content with her finally quiet and happily unremarkable life.